Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited to dive into this video because as the title states, I'll be going through the entire process of my first professional animation gig. This idea has been on pause for a while now, only due to me making sure I can share certain stuff from the project. I had to sign a bunch of documents when I first started my gig, so I did not want to get in trouble if I shared something that went against those documents. In the end, I did get the okay from them. I just can't share the entire animation. But I can show you guys some of it, as well as the beginning stages such as the thumbnails, storyboards, animatic, illustrations, and character development. I thought it would be interesting for those who are also trying to pursue an animation career, and hopefully I can answer some questions or give insight on how the process went down. If you do have any questions about anything that I may have not addressed in the video, feel free to leave in the comments and I'll try my best to answer it. Without further ado, let's dive right in. For those who don't know, I am a storyboard artist and animator. I graduated from art school with my BFA back in 2022, and it's honestly been really hard finding any animation related jobs, especially with what's been going on in the industry lately. I had no luck during those few years. I did have some close calls with Netflix for their story trainee program by making it in the final review process, but never got past there, and now that program has since shut down to my knowledge. Since I wasn't having luck with industry level positions, I decided to delve into the world of freelancing, which is a good alternative. I've been doing that for a while now and have done animated work for YouTubers, streamers, local businesses, and recently a company, which is what this video is focusing on. The way this whole project started was because a close mutual of mine, Sick Vic Sick on Instagram, which you should check out because their art is really cute and amazing, was looking for potential animators for their job, and I happened to reach out. We've been following each other for years, and you may know their work because she was responsible for animating Hemlock Spring's first music video, Girlfriend. We've been in contact for a while and interacted with each other's work, so when I saw they were looking for potential animators, I hopped on the opportunity. Ironically, she was looking at my portfolio when I reached out and was nice enough to share it with their workers at a meeting, and then I ended up getting hired for the project, which was really exciting. This position was not a full-time job, but rather a contract position, meaning the project had a specific time frame and deadline to be complete. This project spanned from 4 months of work, starting from September to December of 2024. I was Victoria's first official hire since they are working to be an art director for the company she's working at, so we were both new to the whole experience. I was glad that they were the one I was working with directly because we were already familiar with each other's process and it made me feel less stressed out. In the end, I really didn't have anything to worry about because of how nice and chill everyone was. It was definitely the smoothest freelance gig I've ever taken, and I learned so much from it. With that little background on how it started done and out of the way, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about what the project was and look at the thumbnails, character designs, and storyboards. The project I was tasked upon was creating an educational music video that would be geared towards elementary and middle school students. My video focused on inflation, which is honestly kind of fitting with what's going on with the world right now. The company I worked with was called Nearpod, and the partner was called Vocabulary, which makes educational music videos for Nearpod's lesson plans that schools can use to teach students. From the beginning, I was pretty much told I had creative freedom, which was really cool. They wanted a video similar to what my work has looked like in my past projects, so I got to work in my usual style, which made things so much easier, so I really appreciated them trusting me and giving me that freedom. The first task I was given was creating thumbnails, designs, and storyboards. I received the audio for the song, so I listened through and jot down ideas through the thumbnailing phase. These thumbnails were just to get basic ideas down on the page before committing to the storyboarding phase. Victoria was nice enough to give me a shot list of their own ideas to work with, and that helped a lot gain ideas and adjusting those initial concepts to something more clear in vision. After each little deadline, I would email any progress I had to Victoria and the team to look over, leave notes, and improve whatever to go on to the next phase. Thumbnails, from what I remember, didn't really get any notes, so I could move on to the boarding phase, but before that, I wanted to finalize character designs so that I had a clear design to work with for my storyboards. I ended up sketching out a bunch of designs to work with and came to 3 different designs to share with the team. Out of the 3, we went with the third design based on simplicity and what would be easier to animate. I didn't want to overcomplicate the designs, and they reassured me that if something seems too complex, just simplify it and not stress, so they were really chill about that. Character designs were approved and I began the boarding process. This had to have been the longest boarded sequence I've ever done, almost being 3 minutes long, so it was a hefty pursuit. Utilizing my thumbnails, I made clean storyboards based off of them and added additional posing and some animation to make the vision clear for the team. Storyboards went through, I want to say, about 3 different edits or adjustments. Edits consisted of me changing up scenes to make them more clear, or even just simplifying it and making it less complex. After those edits were approved, the storyboard phase was done. During my usual process, whenever I completed the storyboard, I would just jump into animation, but that wasn't the case for this project, which I wasn't expecting. My process went a complete different turn, and it honestly saved me in the long run for the project. Phase 2 of the project went a different direction from my usual process because they had me do a bunch of illustrations to go with the animation. The best way I could describe this process was almost like someone doing color keys for storyboards to understand how the animation will look. I probably had over 50 different scenes, so I had to create 50 full-colored illustrations within a 2-week time frame to meet the deadline. I want to preface that they gave me the freedom to pick specific deadlines, so a lot of these were chosen on my behalf to make sure the progress was in line of being complete before Christmas. Should I have added an extra week? Probably, but I was determined everything got done early enough to give me time to animate the entire thing. Illustrations were being worked on pretty much for the entirety of November, so I was getting nervous I wouldn't make the Christmas deadline. The team was real lenient on giving extensions if I really needed it, but once again, it was my first big job, so I wanted to finish it before the deadline, so I powered through. I created a full colored illustration for every scene from my boards and compiled them and timed them out to the song, and then sent that off to approval and notes. Illustrations had the most notes since it was the thing I needed before animation began. These were done primarily so that when I began animating, I wouldn't have to worry about getting notes or changes because they know it's hard making changes when stuff is already animated. In the end, I really did like this approach because I ended up using said illustrations for any background drawings, and I didn't have to redraw a whole lot of backgrounds, which saved me because I really hate doing backgrounds. During the edit phase, we switched out some scenes, fixed some typos, and made color adjustments. Another major thing we had to focus on was if colors would be accessible to those who may be colorblind by making sure colors don't clash. This was new for me because it was something I never thought about before with my own art. But they really walked me through that and gave me a specific website that helped me check if it passed specific regulations, which was really helpful. After a fast 2 weeks passed, we reached the end of November and made our way into the final month. Illustrations were done and final notes were made, and I was finally given the okay to begin the process everyone's been waiting for, animation. After 3 months of work, I was finally given the okay to begin animating. Before showing anything else, I want to clarify that I cannot show the entirety of the animation I did, but I will show bits and pieces to show how I created everything, showing the before and after. That was the major thing they told me, mainly because the animation is going to be part of their subscriptions. Other than that, they were okay with me showing other stuff, just not the full music video. Anyways, animation began in December, and I was worried I wouldn't get it done before the deadline. Animation takes a lot of time to do, and for a 3-minute long project, I thought it would take me more than a month to animate. Past animations that were almost a minute long took me almost a month to animate, so the idea of a 3-minute long animation stressed me out a bit. The deadline was just before the holidays because this video was going to be the last video of the year. For the last few weeks till the deadline, I was locked in. Using the storyboard as a guide, I opened it up in Toon Boom Harmony and animated on top of that to match the timing to a T. I do this all the time for any of my long-form animated projects since it saves me so much time. Every day I would try and knock out at least 10 scenes the most. Luckily, many scenes that I would animate could be reused multiple times throughout the project. One of which being the main score of the song, since it repeats about 3 times. I wasn't going to animate that 3 times. No normal person would sit down and think to do that. After every 10 scenes or so, to make things less cluttered on my timeline, I would group those scenes together and label them for easy access. There's over 2,000 frames on this project. To have everything ungrouped on your timeline would make things very difficult to find and locate. With the deadline coming up very soon, I really couldn't afford losing track of stuff or try and search through hundreds of layers. There's honestly not much to talk about during this phase since it was pretty straightforward. Reference the storyboard, add my animation layers, and animate on top of the storyboard. Here's a couple before and afters of my thumbnails, storyboards, and final animation, just to show how it turned out. Surprisingly, after worrying about not making the deadline for the actual animation, I ended up finishing a week early. It actually took me 15 days to wrap up the animation, which is a record for me. I sent those final notes off and only got a few minor corrections to make. One of which was this specific scene where the graph is shown. I found it very funny because this graph went through so many changes and caused chaos. It went through about 3 or 4 changes to make it simple enough, but still have the necessary information there for people to understand the concept. Victoria was apologizing a bunch because of the sign, but it really wasn't a big deal. It really was just a quick fix. Phase 4 was only really the post-editing phase and the finishing touches. The last thing I had to do was make a zip file compiled of everything I did for the project and send it off to the team to have on file. And with that, I was done! It ended up working out in the end and I was able to complete everything on time. I was really proud of everything and I was so grateful Victoria and their team trusted me in taking on this role as a first-timer. I hope I can get the chance to work with them again because it was such a great experience. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about was pricing, because I feel animators don't really talk about how to price work, especially for someone that may be freelancing. As I stated before, I've been freelancing for the past 5 years now with YouTubers, local businesses, streamers, and recently Nearpod. Pricing your work is something I've always struggled with, but it's super important that you do not undersell yourself, but don't oversell yourself. What is your experience? What are you capable of doing? Don't take on something you know you can't do. There's no correct way of pricing your work, so it's up to you to do the research and find what works for you. When I began freelancing, I actually reached out to my old animation professor to gain insight from her since she has experience doing that. She said at least a minute's worth of animation would cost a minimum of $2,000, but it also depends on what exactly you're going to do throughout the entire process. Are you only animating or are you also doing boards, editing, illustrations, etc.? Try and take into account the work you're doing and apply that into your cost. For this entire project, I charged a flat rate of $4,500 because I oversaw the entire process of the project. From thumbnails, character designs, storyboards, illustrations, animation, and video editing, I kept all that in mind when charging my work. You may run into businesses being hesitant on paying that much for your work, and it may be hard telling clients your pricing, but animation takes so much time and work. You can't make a 3-minute long video in a week. It's not realistic. I've experienced that in the past when I told a client that their original estimated price for a 5-second animation would be even more because they ended up making it 20 seconds and wanted more stuff for me to animate. They were not happy because they stated, and I quote, they were not anticipating paying that much for just a short video. But I didn't back down on it, and in the end, they did pay me. Thankfully, my recent project had no issues paying me the price I gave them. They knew how the process was and understood how much work goes into it, so that made everything so much easier and professional. Pricing your work is always hard, and it's something I've always struggled with, and still do to this day. please take the time to do the necessary research. Trust me, it'll help you out on the long run. With that being said, I think that about wraps up this whole video. What do you guys think about everything? I've been wanting to make this video for so long, and like I said in the beginning, I had to wait to get the okays. As someone who's still new and trying to maneuver their way into the industry, I want to share all I can for other aspiring artists because I feel there should be that transparency of what it's really like. If there wasn't something I talked about or discussed that you may be curious about, feel free to let me know in the comments, as well as just asking additional questions you may have, and I'll try my best to answer. Thank you so much for watching, and please consider subscribing and following me on all my social media for more consistent content by me. Until then, see you next time.